And thank you to the CTO for the invitation to be here. Like so many in the room, I hold multiple portfolios. And in the presentation today, what I want to share with you is how that perspective coming at it from policy, infrastructure, education, security, how those perspectives helped us to build a new agency in the region called the Caribbean Agency for Justice Solutions. So I'm only partly wearing my RN hat. I'm also wearing my hat as the executive director of the Caribbean Agency for Justice Solutions. A quick bit about the agency so you know the context for this presentation. The agency was set up in 2016 to support the modernization and digitization of the justice sector. And by justice sector, we mean all aspects of it: courts, law enforcement, bar associations, and the other special agencies and tribunals responsible for supporting the administration of justice. With that mandate, we had to approach the establishment from a peculiar place. And we had to look at the issue of digital transformation, not just from a technology standpoint, which is where most of the energy and effort tends to go, but from a transformation standpoint. This is a sector that in all of our countries, I think there are major challenges, but it is also a sector in which the criticality of effective justice services is something that every citizen could appreciate. And so for us, the definition of digital transformation had less to do with the digital component and more to do with the question of transformation to what end. Right? Behind these, the attention-grabbing issues of e-filing and case management, we identified two very important change drivers. One was questioning from the get-go and defining from the get-go the value that is to be delivered and to whom. If you're establishing an agency to address justice solutions, not justice technology, then what is it intended to do and who is it intended for? And the second question that we had to ask ourselves from the get-go was defining the change that must be engineered into human behaviors and practices and how those changes could be facilitated. So those were the two foundation discussions or philosophical positions that we held in looking at the establishment. And I'm sharing that with you because for many of us, and we've heard it through several of the speakers, we understand that digital transformation is a multi-layered, nuanced, multifaceted undertaking. And so we felt that to get to the right answers, we had to ask ourselves the right questions. And these are just some of the questions that we sought to answer. How do we see the future of justice delivery? Is it in courts, in physical buildings? Does it have to do with judges and lawyers? Or is there something more fundamental about justice that we can use the technology to get to? Does it start in the courts? Or should we start in the communities? And so to find answers to these questions before we even made the first decision about technology, we looked at how the issue of the views of the stakeholders that we were supposed to impact, how would those views help us to shape and inform the perspectives? The other interesting thing about some of these questions is that we had to use local responses to extrapolate regional positions. And I thought that was also very significant in terms of how those local inputs help to shape and inform how we operate and function as a regional institution. So our approach to innovation in the sector involved these blocks, if you will. The philosophy had to be clearly articulated, had to be agreed upon by the stakeholders from inception. We identified several frameworks that would inform the kinds of areas and activities that we would go into: an innovation framework, a legislative framework, a policy framework, a research framework. We had a philosophy that undergirded a peculiar approach to local solutions to local problems, incorporating indigenous development as part of the responsibility of the agency. And again, I'm sharing all of this to say these were the foundation layers of what became a digital transformation initiative. And then we had to define how we were going to go out and sell this, how to convince groups, persons, communities, nations that had a history and a predilection to foreign solutions, how to get them assured and comfortable and convinced that this is something that we could do as a region. And I know that that is not a challenge that is restricted to the Caribbean. When so many shiny things come from the north or the south, it is exceedingly difficult to convince that similar value could be offered from right at home. And so we had to ensure that our engagement dealt with some of the cultural and value proposition issues that were around that. So this approach led us to establish some particular structures within the organization. We have a technology innovation division. We have a technology academy. We have created a research and knowledge sharing division. And we have created an institutional strengthening division. Another important block inside of what we had to create as a result of this approach to innovation was a stakeholder engagement and empowerment division. In not just engagement, not just reach out and let people know we have new things for them to use and technology can be used in this way. But we realized that we had to actually invest in empowering the stakeholders across these diverse groups to believe that they could play a part in shaping this digitally enabled future. And I can stand before you and say that that was not and is not an easy task. So we also had to very quickly recognize that transformation requires a whole ecosystem approach. And for us, it meant deconstructing notions of what justice services are. It meant confronting long-held views about how and who should be responsible for which aspects of administering or dispensing justice. That's an ongoing battle that we're facing. I'm not coming here with answers. I'm coming here with bruises and scars from the process. But we recognize that there is no easy pathway to the outcome that we are seeking if we don't deal with these things. I have been for some time now involved in promoting the development of critical internet infrastructure in the Caribbean. I'm fully aware of the challenges of broadband access. I've been on fora like these talking about the need to ensure that we have the right kinds of back-end infrastructure to support our digital aspirations. So in looking at and setting up an agency that was responsible literally from the ground up for digital transformation inside of a sector notorious for its resistance to change and notorious for its pride in looking at and preserving status quo, we had to ensure that we were looking or considering all of the perspectives around it. So we set out to transform the delivery of justice at a regional level. And that had us confronting some of the very familiar and long-standing issues that many of you in this room would be also grappling with, and issues that are typically related or associated with developing regions or small island states. It also had us confronting some of the long-standing cultural issues. I referred earlier to the predilection to foreign solutions, but we also had to deal with the mistrust and devalued perception of local solutions. And we also have to deal with the issue of inefficiency being profitable to some. In other words, not everyone has an interest in seeing things change through a better, lower cost, more effective solution. So this is what we discovered. And I just want to kind of wrap up with some of these discovered truths. The tides alone will not take us to the levels of innovation, resilience, security, or development that we seek. A more deliberate and concerted effort has to be made to connect intentions and aspirations to initiatives and programs. For us, we've come to the very clear position that transformation is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a long game, not a short play. And so in this regard, and this is something that I've said in other fora, technology must always be the servant to those development aspirations, not the master. Not the master. So beyond transformation, transformation that takes us beyond technology, our people have to be adequately educated, policy laws and infrastructure have to be enhanced, and many of the speakers before and throughout the week have said this, and persistence, confidence and boldness and faith must be there to energize or make the way. People, policy, and persistence. I heard about the people many times over the course of 2 days. I definitely heard about the policy part of it, but I want to add this little bit about the persistence. It is a non-trivial effort when done right. What's the final judgment? I'll just leave us with these points. Context is key. Initiatives must demonstrate or manifest the same types of value proposition that they're seeking to convince others of. So for us, that means building from the inside out. Innovation aids in developing or small states, government and academia have an outsized role to play, and local innovation is best pursued within the context of global awareness. With those points, I thank you and turn back over to you.